as long as I can find my stuff. Okay. So last time we saw our two intrepid travelers, they were at the edge of Regensburg, somewhere around here in the dead of night. And as I mentioned last time, Gal stopped and asked us if we needed some help. And we said, yes, Stan's phone was basically dead. And so she guided us through the streets.
I'm sorry, Al. I muted you.
You can unmute him, Stan, if you're the organizer.
Al? Yeah, I guess. Al?
I think you
Oh,
Can't hear anything.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I don't know where the control is, but I think if you open up the list of participants, you can click on his name and unmute
There we
him.
go. Is that better?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you didn't hear any of that.
No, you want to start
Okay.
over again?
Start from the
Okay,
word intrepid.
where'd we go here? Okay, we'll try this again.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Everybody.
So here we go, our two intrepid travelers in the dead of night at the edge of Regensburg, but not knowing where we're going. And Andrea, bless her heart, led us through town to this intersection down here next to the McDonald's, at which point she said the place we were looking for was right down this street. And so Stan and I are heading down this street, not quite knowing exactly where we're going. And we arrived at this intersection here, again, very uncertain as to where our hostel was, which is represented in the green here, but we didn't know that at the time. There was a young German couple here, and I approached them and asked for directions. The fellow got out his phone and told us that the place we were looking for was right down this street. So we headed down that street, still not sure of where we were going. Asked a couple of people all along the way, they had no idea at all. And we reached this intersection right there. And I heard a voice saying, have you found the place you're looking for? And I said, no, we haven't. And here it turned out to be the same couple that had helped us back up at the intersection here. And what he said was, you're standing right in front of the place we're looking for. Of course, it was the dead of night and we didn't see the city hostel sign, but that's the place. This was taken the next morning, of course. And we stayed there the one night. And then the next day, we found a new location that was closer to the river, and Stan will talk about that a bit. So our city hostel was down in this area, and we biked the next day up to the Microverse Hotel, which was closer to the Danube. And with that, we were back on track, more or less, Stan, and if you want to take over from there and take us out of Regensburg.
Okay, shall do.
We're very technologically savvy, aren't we?
Yeah, I thought I had it all ready to go, but I guess not. Yeah. I don't know why that doesn't want to open.
You're on.
I guess you can see all the pictures there, right? Can you see the pictures there?
We've got your screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't seem to open individual pictures.
Well, that's the pits.
Yeah, it is.
Can you right click on it and maybe?
Well,
Maybe they're opening in another window behind that window or something like that.
oh,
There you go.
there we go. Okay. Oh dear. Anyhow, yeah, so Dave's 9 at 10 in Regensburg. So there's the map of Regensburg, and here's the city hostel where we arrived. And then we decided that it was kind of far away from the river and the center of the city. So we decided to find another place. Well, we enjoyed a leisurely breakfast at the city hostel, chatted with the staff over a coffee for most of the morning. Very good coffee, not Timmy's, but it was good. Although it was a very nice place, we decided to get accommodation closer to the city center and the river. Fortunately, we found a perfect place online, right by the river. Actually, Al found it. The Microverse Hostel. So around noon, we headed down to the river to our new digs. A very nice place with inside bicycle storage and bake shops all around. It wasn't hard to find a nice bake shop and relax a bit. And there is Al chilling out. St. Peter's Cathedral is a very impressive site. The original church dates back to about 700 AD, when this was a Roman walled fortress called Castra Regina. The original church burned down and was replaced by a cathedral started in 1273. It was finally completed in 1872 with the construction of 2 large towers and spires. So don't freak out if it takes more than 5 years to get your kitchen cupboards done. It took a lot longer to do this cathedral. Here we see the very high nave. And here we see, oh yeah, what a great reminder of the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. So like this is a very, very large figure in the church. The stained glass windows all tell a story. And I believe this is Michael the Archangel fighting off the forces of evil. And here we see the cathedral from another direction. What a beautiful edifice. And it was an expression of worship to God, building these great cathedrals, giving God their very best. This is the old stone bridge across the Danube. It was built way back in the 1100s, and it's still in wonderful condition. It consists of 16 arches with a span of 310 meters. Now it is used for pedestrians to visit the community on the north side of the river. But centuries ago, the Crusaders went across this bridge on their way to Jerusalem in the Crusades to free Jerusalem from the Turks. After shopping for groceries at the nearby Lotto store, we enjoyed supper with a glass of wine at the hostel. Next morning, we enjoyed breakfast at the hostel and decided it was time to do some cleaning. Barb had cleaned our clothes back in the home, but somehow they got dirty again. The hostess kindly provided a washer and dryer, I think at no charge. So we got our clothes all spiffy, but our bikes were still a mess because we had gone through quite a bit of rain and mud. But after using a water hose and a brush, we soon had them looking almost brand new. Sorry, I don't have pictures of that. And here we are crossing the old stone bridge to the north side, actually looking back at the city of Regensburg though. And here they are busy making preparations for the wine festival. And here we are at the canal. This is the most northerly point of the Danube River. It's a very busy waterway. In the distant past, horses on shore were used to pull barges, and these horse walkways have developed into the cycle pathways we use today. Boat traffic is able to go all the way from the Black Sea along the Danube, through a canal from Kelm to the Rhine River, and then enter the North Sea at Rotterdam. It's a very long waterway. There are numerous dams along the river, along with generating stations and canals with locks. It was quite fun watching long, narrow boats pass through the locks. Returning to the south side, I am embarrassed to say we had lunch at, guess, McDonald's. But how could we resist with hamburgers being sold for only €1? And here is David fighting Goliath. I wonder who won. A larger-than-life mural. We enjoyed a stroll through the old part of the city along the very narrow streets. This city was home of the famous astronomer Johann Kepler, who did much of his work here. David, do you know Kepler's 3 laws of planetary motion? I'm sure you do.
I think I've definitely read them, but I can't remember them.
Oh, well, maybe let's water down curriculum. They probably don't, you went to school later than I did.
Can you give us a watered down refresher course?
The planets move in elliptical orbits around the sun, with the sun at one focus.
Number 1.
That's one of them. R cubed over T squared is a constant. Right? Like the radius cubed, the average radius cubed divided by the square of the period is a constant for all the planets, right? And I can't think of that, but 2 out of 3 is a passing grade. Okay, here, the city of Regensburg dates back to Roman times, a walled fortress called Castra Regina. Some of the walls still remains, including the northern gate called Porta Praetoria. Our visit to the Velo shop was quite memorable, a real working shop where they actually repaired bikes, and they had parts everywhere. I think Al loved this place because he likes to repair bicycles, and I think they had every part that you can imagine. They didn't have to order parts. They had it all there. After supper, we returned to the north side of the river, where there was now a large crowd celebrating the wine festival. This is Bavaria, but they enjoy wine as well as beer, and Oktoberfest has not yet arrived. So they had to make do with this. Okay, I'm turning it over to you, Al.
Okay.
So stop share. Oh, I got to stop share. Okay, now Al, you can share.
Okay, so the next day we're going to go from Regensburg to Straubing. One thing I should mention, the Microverse hotel or hostel where we stayed at was superb. There are some wonderful pictures of it on Google. If you Google Microverse Hotel in Regensburg, but a lot of the photos on there are copyrighted, and we just didn't want to take a chance on putting them on. But it was a beautiful stay, and we were fortunate to have found the place. We're going to have a shorter day today, going to Straubing, about 60 kilometers. But when we picked up our bikes, wouldn't you know it, I had a flat tire. It was a quick repair though, and we were off. Perfect weather, terrain was flat alongside the Danube. We came across a small bike shop a little bit out of town and spent about 15 minutes there buying a few items or so. And this might not be particularly interesting to people, but that little container there contains conditioners for leather saddles. And in Canada, that's about 25, 28 bucks. And there it was €7. So that was a bit of a deal and something worth picking up. We headed down the cycle path about 14 kilometers and came across a very, very interesting place. It's called Walhalla. It is basically a hall of fame, so to speak, to honor distinguished Germans, politicians, sovereigns, scientists, and artists, among other people. And basically, it's a temple, really. It opened in October of 1842 and was modeled after the Parthenon in Athens. The Walhalla was conceived in 1807 by Crown Prince Ludwig I of Bavaria. And at the time, he saw it as a means of supporting the momentum that was gathering for the unification of many of the German states that existed at that time. We parked the bikes and walked up, although I don't think Stan counted them, nor did I, but there were 348 marble steps that led up to the entrance of the facility. From here, there are just beautiful views of the Danube in both directions, and just a wonderful place to sit and appreciate where we were. Just some very, very panoramic views up there. A lot of people relaxing, families up there basically having a picnic of sorts. And inside the place, there are about 130 busts and 65 plaques that commemorate, again, famous or well-known German people. Among others, Martin Luther is there, Mozart, Otto von Bismarck, Albert Einstein, and a gal by the name of Sophie Scholl. And if you Google Walhalla, you can find a list of all 130 people with descriptive explanations of the reasons for them being in there. The name Walhalla, if you're interested, comes from an old Nordic legend. And Walhalla was the place where the god of gods and battles in Germanic mythology, his name was Odin. He welcomed those Germans who had died in battle. So a very appropriate name for the location. We headed out towards Straubing and arrived in Straubing in the late afternoon. The basilica that you see in the distance here is the Basilica St. Jacob. It's one of the largest Bavarian Gothic churches in Straubing and the most significant. Unfortunately, as was so often the case during the time we were cycling, we didn't have the opportunity to visit the basilica, but we did stop on the main street of Straubing on the way in to get something to eat and have a beer. And I did get a beautiful picture of this bus. And actually, it's not the bus I want to take a picture of. It was the Gothic tower behind that was construction of that started in 1316. That was the focus of the photo, and unfortunately, we couldn't wait around for the bus to leave. We cycled through Straubing. It would have been interesting to stay in the city, as is so often the case. We didn't have the time that we would like to have had in some of the cities that we were through. But anyhow, we cycled through Straubing and well out into the countryside where our accommodation for that night was located. And it was a place called the Sunny Hotel. And that was a very interesting place. There was no staff on hand when we arrived. Staff was only there in the morning for the breakfast that they prepared. But our accommodation for the night was superb. The place was sparkling clean, comfortable beds, good showers, and just a wonderful place to stay. The entrance to it, just going back for a minute, was an automated entrance system with a touch screen. So you entered your reservation code and it dispenses your room card. So it was something quite unique and something that we hadn't experienced before. When we had cleaned up and settled in and all that, it was getting fairly dark and we were interested in finding someplace to eat, which as you can see from the picture, there's not too much around. But fortunately, Stan's phone told us that there was a restaurant nearby. So we headed out, got on our bikes and turned on our bike lights and headed down some road. Can't remember quite where it was, but it led us into a business park. And of course, everything was dark and empty and no signs of life anywhere. And as best we can figure out, what the restaurant was that the app was directing us to was a cafeteria for the business park, which obviously was closed. So no dinner that night. We went back to the hotel, and my last recollection of that place, and it's a lasting recollection, is Stan sitting on the bed eating granola as his dinner and me eating an apple. So as I say, we're pretty low maintenance, and that is how our day ended. However, we understood there was going to be an excellent breakfast in the morning and something that we would be looking forward to after less than a satisfying meal that night. And with that, Stan, I shall turn it back to you.
Right. So here we are. Yeah, the party's over. We went to Straubing. Now we're on our way to Passau. And whoops. Yeah, so here's the map, Straubing, and our way to Passau. You saw some of these pictures already, so I'm just going to go through. Oh, there's a very nice breakfast. Yeah, lots of variety. And Al was quite enjoying the breakfast, and so did I. And we were getting lots of energy to get on our way. We got our bikes out of the indoor storage. That's the front entrance. And here I'm on the road, and Al is out there too, taking a picture. And the land is really flat here. It's corn country. It's very much like Lambton County right around here. Probably soybeans as well. Beautiful place. And the Danube is now a big river, and the bridges are quite long and far apart. So this is a major highway going across the Danube, but you don't see them quite as often anymore because they have to be so long. And we went through beautiful farm country, lots of crops, but also animals grazing in the fields. And look at this corn. This is the tallest corn I've ever seen. I biked across the state of Iowa, and that's considered corn country, but I never saw corn like this. And nothing like a dip in the Danube to cool off a hot, sweaty biking body. And like, it wasn't overly warm because this is, getting on in September. Because the river is quite wide, there are often ferries across it. Some are quite small, like this one. It is a very nice ride along the right bank with a good paved path through beautiful flowers and trees. And here we are coming into Deggendorf. What a lovely town with a wide boulevard paved with stones. Yeah, not just cheap pavement that cracks up, but really nice stones. And there's nothing like Austrian coffee and pastry to replace the burned up calories. Look at that. Doesn't it make you hungry? So would you call this Austrian? It looks like Danish. Would you call it Austrian Danish? Here we are leaving Deggendorf with lots of energy for the road ahead. Here we are at the bank of the Danube with other cyclists waiting for the ferry. So it's a pretty small boat. Only a few can be on at a time. So you sort of have to wait for your turn. And fortunately, it doesn't take very long to get across, but you can learn patience in waiting. But it was worth the wait, and now it's time for some refreshments. The Danube has been modified over the years to make it more navigable and to harness energy for electricity production. We often pass several dams in the same day. So they're taking advantage of the drop in elevation as water flows along. And here we are at the Rotel Inn in Passau, right beside the river. Perfect place. Now, I thought the room last night was small, but I guess not. It's all a matter of relativity. Whoops. Oh, running out of time. Oh dear. Well, I hope we don't run out too soon. What a way to conserve space. The bed roll down the center kept Al from rolling over and crushing me. So it was all about safety. Here's the Blue Danube right beside the hotel. We were quite starved by now, and it was Sunday with almost everything closed, but being a university town, there were pizza shops. So we found a spot nearby to enjoy some, I'm not sure if it was donuts or pizza, but it was something good. And a great assortment of topics. And we didn't go to bed hungry. All right, Al, it's back to you. Stop share, right? You're on. So we're off. Yeah, unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted, am I?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a wonderful stay in Passau, and I think both Stan and I were really looking forward to arriving in this city. The cycle path from Passau to Vienna is probably the most popular part of the entire Danube cycle path, and an awful lot of the cruise ships stopped there. And we met a number of cyclists that had gotten off the cruise ship and were cycling from Passau down towards Vienna. We had planned to spend 2 nights in Passau, but because of the distance that we were planning to do to Linz, which would have been about 90 or 100 K, we decided to leave a day early. Plus our little hamster room was a bit crowded. They had a wonderful breakfast for us, but the rooms were teeny tiny. I have to say the Rotel Inn otherwise was superb, and the location was excellent. So anyhow, we left Passau after visiting St. Stephen's Cathedral, and I think we went by a couple of times while we were there, once the day before and once the next morning, but for some reason, I forget why now, but we couldn't get in. It would have been nice to have gone inside because it is one of the major cathedrals in Passau. The cycle path leads right down along the point here, and it is just a beautiful scenic ride, and then down the other side, and then you cross over and continue back up. A number of cruise ships had docked along the side, most of them with cyclists aboard. And it was just another gorgeous day. We were looking at a fairly short ride of about 30 or 40 kilometers to Engelhartszell, and had anticipated no particular problems. Little did we know. But for the moment, it was just a very enjoyable morning, and we spent a fair bit of time along the peninsula here. And again, you can see a view from a postcard that I took. And the Rotel Inn is right around here somewhere. And then we cycled all the way up along the point and spend a fair bit of time at the point here before heading down the other side. And it would have been nice to have spent more time there and relaxed like this fella is doing. But we only had a certain amount of time. We won't zoom in on that, I don't think. But it is a beautiful location. A lot of cruise ships coming in. This one getting a picture taken of it. And again, just a beautiful day. So this is taken from the other side as we're heading out of Passau along the Danube. And again, probably one of the most enjoyable sections of the Danube that we had encountered so far. And we arrived in Austria, as you'll see in the next map. Once you cross over from Passau, right about there, you're into Austria. And the reason for this map is because somewhere along here, even though our cycle path was very, very clearly along the Danube,
Yeah,
Stan got
there.
waylaid.
I think it was
And I
right there.
think it
There's a
was
road coming
right
on.
about here. And I'm about half a kilometer behind him, out of earshot. And rather than following the path, Stan starts heading up here. And I'm trying to figure out where is he going? And I had three options. One is to stop and wait for him. Two was to continue on towards Engelhartszell, or three, to try and chase him down. And unfortunately, I chose the third option. And so as I headed up what turned out to be a hill with a series of curves and twists and turns, I had to get off, and I don't know what Stan was doing, but I had to get off and walk the bike up this, calling out to Stan. It would have been handy if we had had walkie-talkies. Anyhow, half an hour later, Stan comes roaring down the other direction, telling us that we're going the wrong way. Biting my tongue, we headed back down and got back on the cycle path, and all was good. And the rest of the trip was uneventful. Again, beautiful locations along the Danube. When we arrived in Engelhartszell, again, we were not quite sure as to exactly where our hotel was located, but asking three women, they directed us to the place, and it turned out to be another wonderful location. You can see in this picture, the hotel was the Goldenen Schiff, and our room had a window right up there that had a absolutely wonderful view of the Danube. So that is taken from our hotel window. We were really fortunate. I don't think we ever had a location that we were uncomfortable with. The city hostel in Regensburg was a little bit out of the way, but overall we had excellent accommodation everywhere we went. But what we enjoyed most, or at least I did, was finding these little grocery stores at the end of the day when you could sit down with a beer and just sort of contemplate where you were and appreciate the fact that we were off the bikes for the day. However, the next day from Engelhartszell, we were heading on towards Linz, and Stan will pick it up from there.